Hello, so nice to meet you.
How are you?
I'm good. Happy Sunday.
Sunday. I hope you're doing well during these uncertain, crazy times.
I am. I just started to get a little stir crazy this week, but I'm grateful I'm healthy, so no complaints.
Well, thank you so much for sitting down with me and CGS. Before we get started, I just wanted to share a little bit about CGS.
Yeah.
City Girl Savings started back in 2015 by our founder, Rhea Reeves. We strive to teach and empower women to reach their highest level of financial success. The ultimate goal is to help women to tap into their financial power, one budget at a time, and whether that's through money management, personalized budget plans, and one-on-one coaching. So now that I've shared a little bit about what CGS is about, do you mind sharing with City Girl Savings audience a little bit about yourself, who you are, where you're from, and what you do?
Yeah, I'm Ashley Stahl. I'm a career coach. Before that, I was a counterterrorism professional in my early 20s, and that taught me everything I needed to know about job hunting, which launched me into the entrepreneurial space online back in 2012. Since then, I've gone on to create so many job hunting courses, online courses on how to figure out your purpose, where you belong in the workforce, some business launching courses, and then I've also been a keynote speaker, and I'm currently the spokesperson over at SoFi.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm having a good time,
That's awesome. So how did you get started in career coaching? What are some of your proudest accomplishments?
Yeah, I would say it was a different world back then. Like Facebook ads weren't really a thing. And so that means ads weren't really being pushed and used with webinars in the way that they are now. Yeah. And so back then it was really how do I have more conversations to get more clients? And how do I show people the value that I offer so that they hire me? I saw my business as more of a marathon and not a sprint when I started my private practice. Yeah. And I think that was really powerful because a lot of people now, you see a lot of ads that talk about get rich quick. Yeah. And while you probably can make a lot of money really fast, it's not sustainable. And you have to have systems in place and content that's been created and a whole foundation in your business. And so the first year of my business, I just spent a lot of time creating that foundation. Yeah. And I'm really proud of that because I had an experience later in my business where I scaled an online course, made a ton of money doing that, and then lost a lot of money after that. And because I built my business with a solid foundation, it was always somewhat steady for me, regardless of the ups and downs of the market, because I had created enough sources on the internet where I had lead generation, and I had created value for different audiences on the internet in a way where I was being found. For example, blog posting. I write for Forbes, and I've got 400 or 500 blog posts on there. And so the thing about blogging is maybe one or two blog posts. One of the biggest misunderstandings I think new entrepreneurs can have is, they'll put their shingle in the ground and think clients will come. But blog posts, it's really creating an island on the internet of influence. And so I don't really see it as when I release a blog post, anything's going to happen. What I see it as is a part of the whole that I'm creating and contributing to. Okay. And so now my blog posts are kind of the gift that keeps giving in my business. For example, people are researching different topics I've written every single day, stumbling upon content I've written every single day. And once I created credibility in one website, I was able to become a blogger for another. So blogging was a huge start for me in my business, for sure.
Sounds like you've done your due diligence. That's amazing. Really, orders in order. So since times are crazy right now, what advice would you give to someone who has recently lost their job?
I would say right now, because everybody's at home, it is an unusually good time to network because people are available. I had a friend just the other day who sent a cold email to Gwyneth Paltrow and got on the phone with her. So
that is the greatest.
It's the greatest. Everything is possible. Yeah. And I think obviously networking is still a numbers game and there's a conversion rate. So I think one of the saddest things for me is when I see somebody hopeful after one or two emails or job applications, whether they're networking and sending emails or they're putting out jobs, it's that kind of attachment usually will kill your spirit in your job hunt. So my recommendation is always see it as a numbers game, high intention, low attachment. Keep putting your action out there. And remember, companies are still hiring no matter what the economy is doing, because some companies are still operating and they have needs, and it's not like the CEO themselves or the founder themselves can do all of those things. So I just had a client the other day who got poached for a job on LinkedIn. He wasn't even looking, and it's double his salary. So it just shows you,
Oh my gosh.
regardless of uncertain times. Yeah. What I would say is, if you have a job where you've proven yourself and you feel like it's really stable for you, and you're not miserable in that job, and it's growing some sort of skill set that you want to be growing. And that's the key, growing a skill set you want to be growing. Because people always say, should I stay? Should I go? And I always say, like, maybe you don't like your coworkers, and there's always reason to go at some point. But during uncertain times like this, I would say, if your job is somewhere that you've proven yourself and you feel somewhat secure, and you're growing a skill set you want to be growing, it's reason to stay, I would say.
Yeah. Like weighing the good with the bad, like what's.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say just considering the changes, because a lot of companies right now that are hiring will be hiring and it'll be fine. And then there's going to be a small percent that thought they could take on that new expense and they can't. And the new person's going to be quicker to go than the old seasoned person.
Right.
All of that said, this is a great time to start a side hustle. It's a great time to be networking, creating options for yourself by having more conversations in your job hunt is really powerful, I would say.
That's so good. I guess, what would you tell someone who wants to make a career change but doesn't know how to go about it or where to start?
Yeah, it depends on how big the pivot is, but definitely my biggest message to them is to know that there's always some way to make sense of your past into your future. And I think the perceptual lens that you look at your resume through and you tell your story through comes down to you. So it's really about saying, what are the skills that the future are calling forward from me? Like, what are they asking? What are these roles that I want asking me to do? And how can I find, even if I sniff very carefully around my past, where can I find a thread or a breadcrumb of me having harnessed those skills? And how can I make those come across a little bit more on my resume? And I would also say, like, your resume is not somewhere that you divulge everything you've ever done. It's a marketing document, and it wants you to share your relevant, underlined relevant experience. And so I think anybody who's writing their resume right now, if they're making a career pivot, remember, it's your relevant experience. I always tell job seekers, like, no more than 6 bullet points per job. And so I kind of see those as real estate. Like, if you're making a career pivot, you want probably 50% of those bullet points to be relevant to your next move. And then maybe the other 50% to be high impact, ways that you've made a difference, and skills that you've used in your role that are honest and clear.
That's so good, because I know sometimes people put random things that have nothing to do with the job that they're trying to get. And it's just like, no, put what you need to put, not what you need to put.
Yeah.
So CGS helps women create and stick to budget plans that allow them to reach their financial goals. Mm-hmm. What are some of your best budgeting or money saving tips that you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, I went through a huge journey where I went into $500,000 of business debt and paid it off over 4 years. And I don't know why I chose not to claim bankruptcy. Like, I don't know. It was like, at the time, my business had just generated $5 million of revenue. And then the ads algorithm on Facebook changed. And instead of accepting the change, I kept fighting and trying to create new ads to promote my course because I didn't want to let go of my team. I think it was 4 years ago. And I mean, I don't wish it upon anyone, but I'm really grateful for everything I learned, obviously. Like, you can only look at something like that and accept the fact that that's going to change you to have to pay off $500,000 as a 20-something. And I say that from a place of ownership, like having chosen that path. One of the biggest things I learned is minimizing expenses overall. Like, at this moment right now, anybody who's listening, there probably are a couple expenses that they can minimize. And one of my favorite things to do is call my credit cards and see if there's a different interest that they're willing. Sometimes, you'd be surprised what credit cards are willing to do if you just ask.
Yeah.
Another thing is simple things like recurring things like car insurance. Like, I started looking into, is there more affordable car insurance for me? Health insurance, alternatives. Instead of cable, I got YouTube TV. It's small things that are huge differences. Yeah. And, even if I was a high earning entrepreneur during this time, a lot of my money went to debt and I wanted to pay it off as fast as possible given the interest. So, like, changing my required ongoing expenses really added up for me. So that would just be some things to start with.
Oh, that's really good. I think I'm really going to take you up on the advice of calling my credit cards and seeing if
Yeah.
interest, because I never thought about doing that. So
Yeah, if you let them know you're really struggling to pay this off, like,
yeah.
is there anybody you could talk to about your interest rate? People will forward you through, and
Oh,
you can definitely get an adjustment at some point or another.
yeah.
Yeah, totally. And even now, like me being the spokesperson over at SoFi, like I know that they're consolidating a lot of debt, which is really powerful for people. So I would also say take a look at your debt and figure out if you want it to be consolidated. It's a really powerful plan.
Well, that leads into my next question. What's the best piece of career advice you've ever received?
Wow. It's so funny. I'm always shelling out the career advice, so I'm so
Yeah.
appreciative.
You just gave me some great advice.
Good. I hope so. It's funny. I'm around it all the time and I'm thinking in it all the time, so I never really know how it sounds for a new ear, you know?
Yeah.
Um, best career advice I ever gotten is that the most interesting people don't have a linear career. Um, so that's what I've received. The best career advice I can give to that extent is your career to me is a vehicle for self-expression, and hold it lightly. Like hold your career lightly. People hold it very heavily. They think about how many years on their LinkedIn profile something shows, or if their resume makes sense. But if you're committed to being corporate, at least try to explore something on the side that allows your career to be that vehicle for self-expression, because everybody, first of all, has had $1 million idea at some point, whether they've executed on or not. People are smart and they have ideas. They just don't realize that it's an idea. The second piece is everybody has a skill that is monetizable today. So even if it's as minimal as like your language skills, there's always somebody in another country wanting to learn your language. Websites like Fiverr, Fiverr, Upwork, even Craigslist, like there's just opportunity there to put yourself out there as a resource for people and earn a real living on the side, and just get experimental about it and start to notice like where are you getting more bites, and not just more bites, but quality bites, people who are actually hiring you for a service you're putting out there. And I would question needing a fancy website to get started, like maybe something clean, professional, and basic that you can create yourself on Wix. But I would encourage people to get creative and realize that something that they really love doing. And I'm not a big advocate for just following your passion. I think who you are and what your natural skills are matter a lot. But figuring out like what makes you feel alive and what skill set are you using when you're at your best, and how can you wrap a side hustle around that or deepen your career into that skill set.
It's so true. Thinking outside the box is probably one of the biggest things we need to do instead of being small-minded.
Yeah, and I would say about 20% I read recently of job openings that Gen Z will fill do not exist right now. So realizing like the workforce is changing. There's Anthony Williams, the medical medium. I don't know if you know who he is, but he wrote Medical Medium, and he's one of the most famous medical mediums of our time, meaning that he, allegedly can tell if somebody has some sort of ailment. And he called this.
I want to know now.
Yeah, he has a lot to say about Lyme disease and Epstein-Barr, and it's just a lot with food. But he calls this time the quickening. And it really is the quickening, the time that we're living in. Everything's speeding up. It started with Facebook and Uber, like being able to connect with people that used to be really hard to find, being able to get a car in 2 minutes to your doorstep, being able to get food, groceries, everything is quickening. So it's like we're living in the quickening, and that to me means that there's a lot of opportunity for you to create something and trust your own creativity if you want to step into entrepreneurship as well.
Oh, that's amazing. So more and more people are thinking of starting their own businesses. What top 3 tips would you give to someone who's make that leap?
Yeah, I would say kind of going back to our conversation earlier where we talked about like my first steps, starting a business, like I'm different in that regard. So when my business kind of fell apart and I put it back together, it was a saving grace for me that I was still able to generate revenue in other ways. And a lot of friends would say, wow, how did you sign all of that? Or how did you make that happen? Did you use Facebook ads? And it was really profound for me to hear them say, did you use ads? Because that's how they so quickly ran their business. But the moment the algorithm changes or gets a little stomach flu, like it changes your revenue, Yeah. And so I'm really proud of the slow burn that I created in my business. I recommend it for everyone. I would say, Instagram is a little island on the internet. Blog posting is an island on the internet. Twitter is an island on the internet. I would say get really clear. Facebook groups, get really clear where you want to put your energy into.
Okay.
One place that's like the mecca for your business. And don't be afraid to invest a lot of free time. Number one, observing it, not looking at it as a user, but as an observer. What's going viral? What's doing well? What's getting engagement? Why? So number one, just being an observer. And number two, making sure that whatever one thing you put a focus on to create your little island for your business, really getting focused on, is it harnessing your skill set? So somebody who is really punchy and quick, they might be great on Twitter, like fun, commentary, chatter. Instagram is a lot more long form captions or aesthetics. So are you great at aesthetics? Are you great at long form captions and quotes? Are you poetic? So I think matching your personality. Facebook groups are all about conversations back and forth and deepening. LinkedIn groups are an incredible gem when you find the right one. So I would also just advise people, if they're going into groups, it's not about how many people are in the group, it's how many of the right people are in the group that you want to be engaging with. So yeah, like I have a Facebook group of like 15,000 people from way back when, and I don't engage in that group too much. It's not a revenue generating group for my business. It's just not the right customers. But then I also have a friend who had 500 people in her Facebook group, and she created $1 million business. So I think just being aware that it's not about how many, it's how many ideal people are in there. So that's if you're engaging in a group. If you're creating a following, how many ideal followers can you get? And how much of an observer can you be to learn the algorithm and play the game? So I would say just really investing time, creating content, learning where you're going to put yourself, and observing what other people are doing to really stand out, and always leading with value. That would be a start.
That's like some great gems you just dropped right
now. So yeah, lead generation. If you could generate leads, like that's half the business. Then you just have to have a good service, which is not just, but you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I know you mentioned you read a few books. What are some of your favorite career and business resources, whether they're podcasts, courses, books? Do you mind sharing any of those resources that you tend to go to when needing a little pick-me-up?
Yeah, I would say my podcast is like such a joy. So shameless plug, I guess, but I love it. U-Turn podcast. It's 2 words. It's YOU and turn. And I love the U-Turn podcast. We have 3 categories on mindset, work, and love. So I have different guests every week in those categories. And then I have a book called U-Turn coming out in January 2021, which I'm really excited about, with an 11-step framework to get clarity on where you belong in the workforce. So that I'm really excited to put out there.
I'm excited.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, I think the subtitle is going to be Get Unstuck, Discover Your Direction, and Design Your Dream Career. So I'm really excited to make U-Turn come out there in January. And other books that are currently out there, I would say The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks is a great book because it gets you to question your own limits. And a lot of the times people think that they don't have clarity, but really they are blocked by some sort of limitation, and they can't get clarity because what they want is on the other side of their own limits. We're here.
Awesome. Okay.
I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened. You totally froze. Hopefully it wasn't me.
I think it's Zoom internet connection. It's annoying.
It's all good. It's all good.
But on the bright side, we're nearing the end of our interview, so it should be fun. Can you share? I'm hoping I can. I think there is a way I can kind of like clip it so where we can skip any awkward areas.
Yeah, well, I think there's just the beginning is an easy thing to snip off, and then probably, it should be easy enough.
Yeah, I'll before I send a copy over to you, I'll just make sure that everything is kind of like formatted in like a correct way. Yeah. It's not too choppy or looks crazy.
Yeah, I always use Camtasia for my video editings, if that helps on a MacBook.
Okay, great. Yes, I have Mac, so that would definitely help. Camtasia. Okay.
Yeah.
Since we're coming to the end of our interview, can you share a few fun facts about yourself?
That's fun. Okay, well, one thing people don't always know is because I worked in counterterrorism at the Pentagon in Washington, D.C.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, like totally random past life. I am bilingual. I speak French and English. And I used to live part-time in Paris. And I just stopped that and domesticated the past year, which has been nice. It's been nice to have roots.
Yeah.
And then another thing, I love cupcakes, and I've tried most of them in Los Angeles. Like if you're a cupcake place in LA, I've gone.
Have you gone to Susie Cakes?
Yeah, I love Susie
Okay.
Cake. I always get their celebration cake for my birthday.
Me too. I love it.
So good. I knew I liked you when you came on here. I was like, good. What else is there? I have a puppy named Jupiter, who's a little German Shepherd.
Oh, I love puppy.
Yeah. He's a joy. He's such a joy.
I know you mentioned that you have a podcast and you have a few books coming out, but where can the CGS audience find and learn more about you?
I'm on Instagram every now and again. I would say at Ashley Stahl. It's ASHLEYSTAHL. And that's the link for my website as well. I've got tons of I have a really cool free quiz on my site on how to figure out your actual dream career path, like which one you're really meant for, which is helpful. But yeah, I'm so honored to have been here with you, and thanks for the really good questions. Hopefully it was helpful to somebody who's listening.
Oh, they were so helpful, and thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to like sit down with us. Are there any last words of wisdom you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, I would say like the final note would just be to remember that clarity comes from engagement. It doesn't come from thought. You know, a lot of people want to think their way into what they want to do next or what they should be doing, but that usually doesn't get you very far. It's engaging, whether that means having a conversation, reading a book, or even having to take a job sometimes is the highest form of engagement to really get that clarity. And so I wish for everybody to engage, whether even if that means just networking.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Ashley. Amazing interview. You're such an inspiration. Thank you. And I hope you have a wonderful day.
Thank you so much. Take care.
You too. Bye.
Bye.